day 2 of the June 97 7-day retreat in Springwater. A windy morning. I noticed in sitting, when this particularly strong gust came up, seemingly chasing through the hall, rattling at the woodwork, there was some tension in the body. It wasn't just this open listening, the body was tensing. And upon watching it some more, there was the tensing of anxiety or memory, anticipation, something may happen. That does not all have to be verbalized. It's the network functions instantly of connecting other loud noises in the past, what one has read, heard, the danger of it, instantly connected, and the body faithfully manifests what goes with these associations of wind and damage, or even detected some memory of air raids, which were loud wind swooshing noises. And then wondering whether it was possible to disconnect the listening from this whole complex of memories. Not how do I do this, but just the ever so fine listening without any need to resist it. Because all of this, what I described, manifests as resistance, trying to keep it away. The transparency of resistance means it's all right. Let it blow through. Let's see what happens. It's possible. Possible for a human being who grew up as anxious as I did to just listen and allow the network to lie there disconnected from the actuality of this moment. How do I do it? There's no I doing it. There is, in the awareness, in the listening, there is an intrinsic wisdom that functions. And discerns what is necessary, needed, and what is not necessary. Obviously, if something happened here to the building, or it was really dangerous, there would be action that needed to be taken. So with that, I come to a question that was asked this morning, I think. I like what you say about unfocused awareness. Just the openness of being, listening, attending. And yet, when you speak about looking at something carefully, I don't know the first thing about it. How do I go about looking at something? How is that done? I don't know. And how is it related to unfocused awareness? The questions that are being used, or that sort of stream into a talk, are usually questions that apply to all of us, whether we've been here for the first time or many times. These are all, if we but open to them, universal questions, even if not relevant this very instant, maybe the next day or yesterday. And let me just say, if you have ever anything that you bring up in a meeting, private or group, that you do not want to be openly entered into in a talk, then please let me know. I'll try to keep this sorted out, not to bring it up. Also, at the beginning of a retreat, the questions that I do bring up are not remembered verbatim. I don't have that capacity. They are new formulations, often by combining what other people have also asked in a similar vein. So, how to look at something, and how is that related to open, unfocused awareness of wind and birds and breathing, the physical sensations and sounds, fragrances. People sometimes put it this way, I don't have a question at times, there's just the beauty and peacefulness of sitting. Should I then bring up a question? Whom is one asking? I'm not assigning procedures here. But let's be sensitive ourselves to whether something comes up suddenly in the midst of peaceful, quiet sitting. A memory comes up of something that is agitating the body-mind instantly. Agitating with anger or fear or pleasure. So then, is there any choice but to wonder what is going on here? What is bringing about this agitation, and what is it in itself? Nobody needs to assign one this question. It comes up for human beings all the time. We're rarely in balance, are we? Usually something has toppled the balance, upset it. And isn't there an innate impulse or yearning to re-establish harmony? I find this more and more in myself, this real need to keep order in this body, mind, and all around me. And when it's established for a while, I just said the other day to Kyle, I feel so good right now. Right now, at this moment, everything is in order. I don't know how long it will last. Something will surely come up, a phone call or a meeting or something. But while it is there, it is a marvelous thing not to need to be in conflict with anyone or anything. And enjoy this open, undivided, unfocused being awareness. And then something does come up. I described the wind this morning, and the wondering, what is it that is disturbing? And since the question was asked and is frequently asked, let's go into it. How to go about investigating, exploring disturbance. We're not even right now specifying it. Could be anger or fear, anxiety, guilt. First of all, do we want to explore it, or is there already a resistance coming up, not wanting to touch this? That can be ancient for a human being. Since maybe early childhood, not to want to go into something that's painful, fearful, exposing of oneself. Because we have built up strong images to which we hold how we are. We're not fearful, we're not jealous, not guilty. Didn't do anything wrong. We're not angry, we're a peaceful, loving person. Such imagery, I'm putting it very coarsely, but we do all attach to images about ourselves. Most of them filtered into us since early times. Others adopted, and still constantly adopting new images as per whatever we are doing, where we are finding ourselves, work situation, family situation. Always needing to know how should we be in this situation. What is the right thing, or what is the most suitable for me? And these images, even though they are very much hailed in our society, because it is believed that these images pull us along to become a better person, or a more wealthy or successful person, which may, for in the short run or long run, be true. But they prevent, at the same time, this honest looking at what we really are, what is really going on, this moment of upset. So, maybe that's the first thing to discern, is there a real interest in an openness, a readiness to question into one's upset? Or if there are resistances, then never mind the upset. The first thing needs to be examined is the resistance. If one is so inclined, one may not be, and try to shove it all away. And very often spiritual practices, concentration practices, are an aid in shoving away what would disturb. Disturb the seeming peace that we're trying to establish through a practice, through concentration, through repetition. One-pointed mind, focused on one thing, a word, a visualization, whatever. So it's up to each one. There's no prescription here what one ought to do, but we talk about it. And talking about it alone and together, groups and one-on-one meetings, it's sort of like plowing a hard soil, a hard, dense soil with little aeration. And the talking and looking and questioning sort of brings openings, breaks up the soil, allows water, air, and sunshine, and seeds to penetrate. That's the beauty of getting together in a retreat like this, talking together, and also sitting again quietly, where the stuff can work, operate, ferment, germinate. So, is there resistance? Are we interested in touching it, asking it, what are you? Why the resistance? Not to break it down, but to gently probe into it. Allow it to talk back to us. And there is a very helpful process that I've discovered using, nobody told me, and probably many people of you are doing the same thing without necessarily being able to verbalize it all. One asks, what is this? Am I resisting because of this? And at first, the answers, why am I resisting? Is it because of this? Comes usually from a repertoire of ready-made answers to why a human being is resistant when it comes to looking at disturbance. We've heard so much psychological explanation. We've read so many articles and books, and the explanations in the brain abound for our behavior. But let's not accept them. Let's not reject them, but question them. Is it because of this? Something pops into the mind. And then ask it sort of as into a huge dark black hole. The hole of not knowing. Resistance is felt, but what it is and why it is, we don't know. So we ask, is it because of this? And then not to give a quick pat answer to that question, but let something come out of this fertile hole, which is our personal as well as general consciousness. And it will say, yes, that's in there, that's an ingredient, but let me feel it out. This isn't the whole thing. That's not a complete explanation. That's not the total thing. And so one probes again, well, what else is in there? Is it this? And as one probes, more things come to mind, maybe not just from the repertoire, more from our live experience. And one will ask again, and an answer will come. Yes, but not quite. It's not the whole thing. And maybe in asking in this fashion, there's less and less resistance. Because something new is taking place. A genuine exploration. One tries to find out, get to the bottom of this thing. One may find that with questions and answers, there is no bottom to this thing. There's always another thing, another question, another answer, another yes, but. But we're not talking a blue streak, non-stop. In between, there's this quiet listening, attending to not knowing. And in that quiet attending to the darkness of not knowing, there's also the wind and birds and breathing. Those need not be banished as distractions. Somebody brought this up in a meeting. Really doing this work, coming to meditation, to see whether one can be free of a constant fear. Many of us have come to this because of the burden, the pain, the disability of fear. But can we be a bit wiser already, not just trying to be free of this fear, get rid of it, but to understand it. To understand it profoundly all the way. Why are we afraid? Not just specifics, although we start with specifics. Already there's no end to those. But from the specifics. And yes, but. There is just fear in a human being who feels isolated and separated from what is its true source, its true home. Wholeness, no division. The emptiness of no division. And emptiness, by that I mean no occupation by crust and cell, by self-enclosure. Self-enclosure becoming increasingly transparent. And through that transparency, it is clear that we are not isolated from each other. That's the other aspect of meditation, of meditative sitting, inquiring. To come upon quiet, emptiness, wholeness. In the midst of this conditioned body-mind. Exploring the conditioning in a way we have shown a bit, and at the same time touching the stillness. Which is our common source, our common ground, shared with everything there is and is not. So, if that source of stillness, of quiet emptiness, if that is touched, now and then, maybe in the course of many years, a longer duration, not just a fleeting blink of it, but somewhat sustained time. At such a time, there is no fear. Fear does not exist in that. Because in that, there is no attachment and identity with one's personality, one's life history. At that moment, that's just not important. It's there, and it functions in certain ways, helpful and not so helpful. Most of the time, we're out of this. But in this, there's no fear, no anger, no guilt. Somebody said the other day in a meeting, referring to a little bit different things, this seems to be a place of everything is no this, no this, no that. I think it's not negativism. It is that only by realizing what it is not, it's not guilt, it's not fear, it's not separation, it's not role-playing or being somebody or power play. If it becomes increasingly transparent what it is not, then what is reveals itself on its own. It doesn't need to be named and described and defined, because it is not nameable or describable or definable. This is what we have called quiet, still, empty wholeness, our common source and home. In which there is no this, no that, no. Therefore, all right, if you want something positive, there's love in it. Love and boundless energy. Creativity. So it's so significant for us to touch this for even fleeting moments at a time, and realizing that at that moment, and people tell me this, at that moment there was no fear, there was no I. To understand more about fear, that it is inextricably connected with being attached to me and my possessions. Possessions is a wide term. Not just the material possessions of house, home, and car, but my imagery, my ideas, my opinions, you name it. Attachment to that. Then there's fear of losing it, of not being regarded as such and such a person or in such and such a way. To understand the dynamics of the way we're living, to let them become transparent, so we don't fight windmills. Just to try to get rid of fear is like fighting windmills. Fear does not exist where there is no identification with myself and fear for my life, because it's clear that it's something that comes and goes like bubbles on the foam. And if that's a scary idea, if one already doesn't want to hear much more of this talk, it gets too insecure. What is this insecurity? Test it, explore it, plumb it in its depth. We come here for that, but we don't quite mean it. We want to go so far, get all the goodies, and not this, not that. But not to put oneself down. Did it sound as though I was putting us down? No, that's not what is meant. Actually, somebody said last night, we had a group meeting, and it was also about resistance. I don't know what all came up, but one person said, you know what is the blessing of these group meetings, that one doesn't feel so isolated, one sees other people feel just the same way. That's another characteristic of brain work, this particular brain work, to think it's only me who's like this, unfortunate or bad or unhappy or insufficient. And to share, to see that we share that, which relieves us of self-condemnation and frees the energy for further looking what this is all about, condemning oneself. What self? What is it that we're condemning? Is it any more than imagery? Somebody brought that up in the meeting yesterday. Is that all we are? I don't know what the connection was. Images about this and about that, and memories. Or is there something more to oneself? But first one has to come to see clearly what it is that we think we are, and examine it, probe it, track it. Let it reveal itself in action, in its consequences. So there is wisdom sprouting about all of that. Not condemnation, but wisdom and compassion. Somebody yesterday picked up what I had said, that at times we may have to play roles, perform certain role-playing functions at work. We're expected to behave and do things in a certain way. Not ask questions, just do it. And someone said, I do that. I'm getting pretty good at it. But at the same time, I feel I get jaded over. There's no relationship there with a supervisor. More people talk about their supervisors. It must be one of the most difficult things at work. So how can one become a supervisor oneself? That's just a not so witty remark. jaded over. That's, of course, not what I meant, and person understood that very well. I didn't mean that. And please, let's all use this week to let the jade wear down in the wind and weather. So one begins to be sensitive again. And sensitive does not just mean to the beauties of spring flowers and bird song and clear skies and blue hills, blue-green hills, but sensitive to pain, the pain of repression, of constriction, of denial, of what one really is from moment to moment, to let it flower forth. That breaks the jading, the crust, to let flower forth what is all going on for us, truly, honestly, from moment to moment. Doesn't have to be all confessed. Somebody said this yesterday. I used to be so scared to come into a meeting. I was brought up Roman Catholic, and it felt like waiting for confession. I forgot what she said. Father, bless me or forgive me or something, what you say before or after. Say again?
Bless me, Father, for I have sinned.
You remember it.
Okay.
Some people are very good at putting it all out there, hanging it on the line for everyone to see and discuss and so forth. Other people need to do this in their quiet little chamber. What's important is not that it's all public, but that one sees for oneself, and that will become public, that one has discovered something, because there is a new flexibility and openness visible and experienceable for the people around us when we discover something about ourselves and need not stick to imagery, the rigidity of that. So we came from jading over, and not to expect anything when this wears off. It's not all utter beauty that will enter. It's all kinds of stuff. The whole thing will enter. This whole thing of living the way we live and have denied and repressed and are fearful and angry and jealous and envious and the whole thing, as well as loving, is also there. It's the whole human spectrum. Let it be seen and unfold to intimate view and learning. Because we don't just learn about me, myself, we learn about each other in this process of discovering ourselves in all of our conditioned aspects. And in that discovery may be the flowering of compassion and wisdom about why we do the things we do. What holds us imprisoned and deluded, distorted in our views? Not just me, but everyone else. Then we understand each other, why crimes are committed. Then there's not a question of, I forgive you, I understand you. I can see it because I can see the same thing, or at least the potentially same thing in myself. Because I understand how the mind can project things which are not true, have nothing to do with reality, about myself and other human beings. So it's a marvelous reciprocity in working alone and working together. Somebody asked in that same group yesterday, I don't quite remember exactly the way she put it. Do we need others to be connected, or do we need connectedness with others? We are connected. It's impossible to undo this total interdependence, interconnection with all that is alive in this process of living. And in what's alive, we include the stars and the rocks. So, do we need each other for our own purposes, our own comfort, our own enrichment? Exploiting others for our own sake to become more powerful, more important? That's how we use each other a lot. Supervisors may need the supervised in order to feel important out of this gnawing feeling of insufficiency and inferiority, needing people under oneself to feel uppity oneself. Or is there yet a totally different way of interrelating, needing each other to see ourselves as we are, to reflect each other as mirrors, in which there is true discovery and the seed of love and compassion? We will end here for today.